Support is important. It comprises of AA defenses to protect yourself from helicopters, and artillery to pound the enemy into submission. Let's start off with airborne stuff. The first airborne class you can have is anti-aircraft artillery. Basically, this is very short range, but if a helicopter gets anywhere near this stuff, it's going to be screwed. So here we have the little BTR Zabuti. It's got a lot of ammo, but it's very slow. Okay, so this is definitely a sort of ambush stuff that you'll say you have it next to your command vehicle, but you don't want to spend too much on it because you're attacking. A helicopter might get in, and these heavy machine guns will, discourage it from getting any closer. Let's just put it like that. So basically, very keep recon, or not recon, AAA, AAA. You spread it around the place so a helicopter can't get anywhere near your stuff without taking a bit of damage. But overall, I wouldn't use this generally because it's got no armor, it's got no range. Similar story to, let's see, we got the Flakpedzrika. I'm sorry, I can't really pronounce these stuff. Similar kind of system, it's just East German. We've got the Kamaz Zu-22 anti-aircraft artillery. Now this is interesting, it's got a very fast 90 kilometers an hour, so this I'd say would be good for sort of combating and helicopter spam. So you buy a ton of these because they're only 15 each, and then you can just throw them at the enemy air support, because even though the enemy helicopters will be firing at them long before these guys get into range, they're fast, so you can easily combat them and shoo them away. Then you've got the Praga. This is an interesting AA because it's originally artillery only, but then it gets a few missiles when you upgrade it. Apart from the Tunguska, this is the only combined system there is in AA. So you get some basic artillery, then you upgrade to the Strop, which has got a better artillery, and then the Strop 2, which has got these Igla missiles. Now, the Igla missiles are interesting. They have a very bad range for AA missiles, at only 2,400 kilometers. Advanced NATO helicopters will be able to outrange them, but they have accuracy 9, which means pretty much if this thing is launched, it's going to hit. And AA missiles do a lot of damage. Also, this is quite cheap at 50, so basically this is, for example, a variant of the ambush AA where you pay a bit more, but you've got these Iglas. So overall, quite interesting. Then you've got some, I think that's, we also have these Svika artillery. I think this is the stuff you get as decent. It's the same kind of story. Keep powerful when it gets into range, but out of range it won't do a sausage really. Then we get into the combined AA, as I already showed the Strop 2 as a sort of ambush one. Then there's the Tunguska. So for the basic Tunguska, you've got the autocannons, same story, but you've also got these basic AA missiles that have equal range to any AGM from a helicopter, and bad accuracy. But they've got 8 missiles, which is a plus. 8 missiles is quite a lot, and some basic speed and some basic armor. Then you upgrade to the 2K22M Tunguska. It gets a very nice SAM, which can outrange any helicopter by a comfortable margin. Accuracy is given a boost, as is damage. That's it. It gets the better missiles for the M variant. This is my basic AA unit that I always use, just because it's reliable, because it's got these SAMs are very good. If you give it, say, a level 1 veterancy, it can usually one hit NATO helicopters. It rarely misses, and usually after the first few kills it might get a bit more experience to be a confirmed one hit. But basically this is my preferred unit because it's got the AA missiles to just cause carnage to helicopters, but it's also got the autocannons as a sort of reassuring backup. It's got 8 missiles though, so generally it won't need resupplied too often, but you might want to keep a supply truck one or two nearby just in case they start spamming it. But overall this thing can take care of itself in most situations. Then you've got missile only AA. This stuff's generally delicate but has a huge range and decent accuracy. So you've got the Cub. As you can see, it basically gets the Tunguska's AA missile, but you get it for about 40 points less. But it's slow. and weak. Then you can upgrade to the buck, which is a longer range and very nice accuracy in AP, and then the buck M1, which gets even more accuracy in HE power, and then 4,200 meters range, the maximum for AA missiles. Also gets a slight increase in speed and range, but basically, so this stuff is basically very for uber long range shooting that hits them and does huge damage. But that's the thing, they'll never see this thing coming. Apart from that, I think the only other dedicated AA platform is the Strela 10, which has 12 missiles, so it's got a lot of missiles, but its range isn't good. Overall, I wouldn't use this, except for endurance AA. I'd say that's where its strong point, where you want to have some AA in an area, and you don't want to waste points resupplying it. So there we go. Then after that, we move on to the artillery side of it. So for long range damage. So first off, the Pion, and then upgrading to the Malka. This is interesting artillery. It's basically only a gun artillery. It's slow, but its rate of fire is pretty bad, and its ammunition's pretty bad too. You can only fire 2 or 3 shots a minute, so it's quite slow. But the advantage of this artillery is, one, its range. As you can see, especially when you upgrade to the Malka, this thing will be able to hit anything on the map from any point without a too large a decrease in accuracy. So this is very good for putting this in your base and then cutting it out with a few FOBs around it to keep it firing throughout the game. This thing can do a lot of damage. It's also got good accuracy, so overall this is your basic dedicated artillery unit. Oh, I've just missed that. There's also some OSA AA missiles. Yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of variation in PACT AA. This is one of their strong points, so they've got a lot of stuff. Overall, I wouldn't really use this because I prefer the Tunguska, but basically it's some keep missiles from the looks of it. So if that's your thing, go for it. Anyway, back to the artillery. So then after that, we got the Dana. Now this is a pretty nice artillery gun. Its range isn't as good as other stuff, but it's the most accurate artillery gun in the game. This thing can land incredibly accurate shots, so this is very good for picking off enemy unarmored vehicles and command vehicles. Good accuracy. It's also got a little gun and a machine gun on it to give it some backup firepower. It's also incredibly fast. This is going to be useful in artillery v artillery battles, because you can fire a volley and then move it quickly to another point, so it avoids a counter battery fire that could otherwise destroy it. In terms of armor, it's got 1 front armor, so I wouldn't put too much hopes of it in a battle, but it's fast and accurate. This is one of my preferred artillery guns. Apart from that, I think that's the last of the sort of barreled artillery. Yep, looks like it. So then we move into rocket launch artillery. This is another PACT speciality. They have a huge amount. Okay, so here we have the BM-21 Grad. These are MRLS, multiple rocket launcher vehicles. Basically, these are good for completely suppressing an area and panicking everything in it. These things can cause carnage when they get it right, but they're expensive to run. As you can see here, this is sort of your basic artillery. You also so yeah, it's got some rockets. It's got 40 rounds of rockets. Generally, rocket artillery fires all of its ammunition at once, so you have to be very careful to make sure you've got a decent shot. It's quite fast, and it can get to quite far around the map. Paying extra 60, you get upgraded to the Czechoslovakian RM70s. Basically, the advantage of this is that you can fire 2 salvos instead of 1, and they've got a machine gun for backup defense. Also, they're a bit faster, but overall, I'd say this is just too expensive for what it is. Don't use this, and don't upgrade to this. This is good for sort of basic stuff, but I wouldn't really use it. At the moment I'm preferring this. This is better in the current version. You've got the BM27 Ergan and the BM30 Smirch. This stuff has a much better range and is more accurate, so it can deliver a slightly better concentrated fire. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So for this stuff you pay more, but it does damage, and it goes HE power 6 and 5 compared to the BM21, which only had 3. So this is firing fewer rockets, but it's doing more damage per hit, which can be useful, definitely. After that, we've got the East German variant of the BM21, and again upgrading to the East German variant of the RM70. So basically, it's the same kind of thing, but with an East German flag on it. So if you want to build lots of these, this is what you'd use. Don't think there's any difference between them, so it's just a matter of national pride which one you use. Then you've got and finally, to round this off for this episode, we have the TOS 1 Buratino. Now this is a very interesting artillery unit. It costs 150, which is a lot. Its range is quite bad. The gap between the minimum firing range and the maximum firing range is very nasty. The Goldilocks zone is tiny. But the advantage of this thing is basically twofold. One, it's got quite good armor for artillery. It's got 5 front, 3 side, and then 1 everywhere else. So it can take quite a few hits surprisingly, but it would have to because it's quite slow, so it can't run away like other stuff like the Dana. But the advantage of this is this thing does the most damage of any artillery unit in the game. This pretty much routs anything that it hits. So this is a perfect unit to sort of begin and advance with. So you fire a few shots, you let the Buratino rain down, everyone's panicked, so it doesn't matter what you're attacking with, they can't fire back. Good. It's a great unit to use. So I think this will do it. So we've covered logistic, recon, and support vehicles. Thank you very much, and goodbye.